A man would grow his hair to nearly 50 centimeters long. He was not allowed to go to war until that hair was cut. When he captured his first prisoner, his hair was cut. After capturing 4 prisoners, he was allowed to wear jaguar skin. He was invited to eat at the emperor's table. He was given the right to drink pulque. But if he drank even 1 cup too much, he would be killed without hesitation, his head crushed with a stone. To become an Aztec Jaguar warrior was to walk the thinnest line between opportunity and death. In the 1400s, the Aztec Empire was ruled from Tenochtitlan. It was a massive capital built in the middle of lakes, temples, markets, canals, and hundreds of thousands of people. This empire was not built on peace. War was the foundation of the system. Every male child was marked as a warrior at birth. Even the moment of birth was ceremonial. A shield was placed in his left hand. An arrow was placed in his right. His umbilical cord was cut, taken to a battlefield by a warrior, and buried in the ground. This ritual declared that the child now belonged to war. For girls, the umbilical cord was buried near the home's hearth. Fate was decided from the first day. Men fought. Women belonged to the home. At the age of 6, children were sent to school. But this was not school as we understand it today. There were 2 schools. Kamikak was for nobles. Priests, rulers, and commanders were trained there. Commoners' children were sent to Tlaxcala. The vast majority went there. They woke at dawn, they carried stones, they dug canals, they built walls. Teachers were harsh. Beatings were normal. Pain was an essential part of education. The goal was not knowledge, but to prepare them for the reality of war. At the age of 10, their hair was cut, but a small lock was left at the back of the head. This lock was called piochtli. It was never cut until the first prisoner was captured. It could remain for years. This hair was a mark of shame. It told society, this man is not yet a warrior. Some carried it until the age of 20. They were mocked. They were humiliated. The pressure was intense. Capturing a prisoner was not optional. Military training began at 15. They used slings. They fired arrows. They threw spears. And they learned the most important weapon, the macuahuitl. It was a wooden club lined with obsidian blades. Obsidian was volcanic glass, sharper than modern surgical scalpels. A single strike could decapitate a horse, but it was extremely fragile. It shattered when it hit armor, so strength was not enough. Technique was everything. At 17, they joined their first campaign, but they did not fight yet. They carried supplies, food, wood, and water. They stood beside veteran warriors. They watched how they fought. They learned how prisoners were taken. They saw blood, they felt fear, but endurance was mandatory because in Aztec warfare, killing was forbidden. Living captives were required. The gods demanded blood, but they demanded living sacrifices. When the first prisoner was captured, the hair was cut. He was now considered a man. He earned respect in society. But this was not the end of the path. Those who captured 2 prisoners wore better clothing called tlahuistli, red and black decorations, a conical headdress. Those who captured 3 became papalotl, meaning butterfly. They wore butterfly feathers and colorful garments. The true turning point was the 4th prisoner. Those who captured 4 became Jaguar Warriors. Their entire body was covered in jaguar skin. The head appeared to emerge from a jaguar's mouth. A red cord was tied to the hair. Blue, green, and red feathers were worn. They were now full-time soldiers. They were fed by the state. They protected merchants and cities. They were no longer ordinary laborers. They were granted tax-free land called pilali. It was true private property. It belonged to the warrior for life. It passed to his son after death. It remained in the family for generations. Ordinary farmers only had usage rights. Jaguar warriors owned the land. This meant a complete change in social class. They ate at the emperor's table. Meat, maize porridge, and cacao drinks were served. They were allowed to drink pulque, an alcohol forbidden to common people. Anyone else who drank it was executed. Jaguar warriors were allowed, but limits still existed. 1 cup too many meant death. They could keep concubines. 2 or 3 concubines signaled status. The main wife lived in the household. Concubines lived separately. They wore jade necklaces, gold earrings, and feathered headdresses. These were forbidden to commoners. Breaking the law meant execution, but during training, everything was forbidden. Pulque was prohibited. One drop could lead to beatings or even death. Being caught with a girl meant execution. Runaways had their heads shaved and were publicly shamed. Discipline was ruthless. There was no mercy. They were awakened at midnight and thrown into freezing lakes. They sank. They were expected to survive. Teachers watched. Those who failed died. No one mourned them. The weak could not become warriors. That was the logic of the system. They were forced to sit on thorns. Their hands were tied. They waited for hours. Blood flowed. Crying was forbidden. Anyone who made noise was beaten. The goal was to endure pain, because on the battlefield they had no choice. Real wars were ritual conflicts known as the Flower Wars, called Xochiaoyotl in Nahuatl. They were not fought for land. They were fought for captives, most often against Tlaxcala. Both sides agreed in advance. Time and place were set. They began at dawn. First came the archers, then the spearmen, then the Jaguar Warriors charged. The goal was not to kill, it was to capture. The enemy was wounded in the leg, knocked to the ground, and subdued by stepping on the throat. The rank of the captive mattered greatly. Ordinary soldiers were worthless. Enemy commanders were priceless. Whoever captured one became rich. They gained nobility. Their family's fate changed. A single prisoner could change an entire life. Retreat was forbidden. The highest-ranking warriors, the Cuchique, never withdrew from battle. Anyone who did was killed by his own comrades. Honor demanded it. Captured warriors were sacrificed. They were bound to a circular stone called the Tamalacatl. One hand was tied. They were given a fake weapon. 4 or 5 Jaguar warriors attacked them with real weapons. In the end, the warrior died. A priest cut open the chest and removed the heart while it was still beating. The heart was offered to the sun god Huitzilopochtli. Blood was spilled. This was believed to maintain the balance of the universe. Those who died in battle went to heaven. They rose with the sun. They accompanied it from sunrise to its peak. Then they were reborn as hummingbirds, living among flowers. This was the most honorable death. Those who died at home went to Mictlan, the 9-layered underworld, a 4-year journey of suffering, ending in servitude. That is why dying in battle was considered 1,000 times better. The average life expectancy was 37 years. Most died young. Wounds became infected. There were no antibiotics. Even small cuts could be fatal. Skeletons show broken bones, spinal deformities, and damaged joints. The cost was high, but the alternative was worse. A farmer starved during drought, a fisherman drowned at sea, an unemployed man became a slave. But the Jaguar warrior had food, he had a home, his family was safe, he was respected, children admired him. His grave was built near the pyramids, his name was carved into walls. The ordinary man was forgotten. The warrior remained in history. The Flower Wars were also an economic system. Tlaxcala was never fully conquered. The terrain was mountainous. Logistics were difficult. There were no horses or wheels. But constant war weakened Tlaxcala. Young men died. The economy suffered. Balance was maintained. This system lasted for 100 years. In 1519, the Spanish arrived. Tlaxcala hated the Aztecs. A century of war had built deep resentment. Cortés arrived with 600 men. Tlaxcala provided thousands of warriors. An alliance was formed. The Aztec Empire fell. Was this system worth choosing? For the Aztecs, yes, because it was the only path by which an ordinary man could rise in class. It was dangerous, but there was hope. The pyramids were built not of stone, but of labor, and the labor that held the empire together was the Jaguar Warriors. As we trace the lives long lost to time, continue this journey by subscribing.